Hello, everybody. It's been a while, and I've been a little busy, so I'm not going to bore you with too many details. So I'll just get to the meat of whatever project I'm going to get into right now. The goal is simple. I just want to be able to copy XML data to a CSV file. I think that's the gist of it right there. My initial goal was to originally just create a PowerShell file, and had to think about this. I'm doing this in between other projects and also taking in calls and working on repairs and stuff like that. And that's not counting what I got in real life. So we'll move on because I don't need to bore you with all those details. But the main thing to concern myself with right now is that project is simple. The proprietary software has an XML that affects certain hardware. There's certain data on the XML file that needs to be copied over and then later on has to be put back. I don't want to do all that jumping back and forth, so for now I'll just copy the data and save it to a CSV file. Simple. So we want to just create a PowerShell script, copy that data from a specific tag or tags, and save it to the text file. And then from there, I moved on to going and output to a CSV. So with a little creative help from my good friend Google, asked a lot of questions, went through a couple of the forum posts, looked at a couple different tutorials. Um, I've ironed it out. And part one was basically just define a few variables. So there, I'm just going to go and I need a variable to create a path to the XML file and another variable, create a tag that's going to take whatever tag I want and take it from the XML file, and then I also need an output path. So three things that need to get done. So one of the first things that I can do is open up a file explorer and then pick a location that I want for this. I tend to like to mess around my public folder a lot. Keep it messy. I can always just dump things as I need if I don't need them. So for that, I'm going to just go in here and I'm going to create two directories. First directory, very original name, test directory 1. And of course, I am going to just copy this because my output directory, we're going to have a very original name and we're going to call that test directory 2. So we have our paths. I'll minimize this for now. So next step would be pretty straightforward. For the purpose of the experiment, I'd like to make two directories. I just showed you that. And I told you where I was going to put them. And for the first variable, XML file path, this is pretty much what we're going to call it. In test directory 1, I already have a config file XML that we're going to be using. They're going to be from. And we're also going to have a CSV file path as to where our output is going to go. And then we need to extract the tags, so these are the tags that I'm going to be looking for, and I have a variable set up to look for those tags. Yeah, I know, it's like I'm a little tired, but I'm trying to explain this as I go along. I did a little bit of bolding here so that way it stands out a little bit more. Now, we got to break part down. Now we have part two, and hey, we got some fun here. Not really, but we have to break it down. Two manageable parts. And the first part, we have to check to see if the XML exists. And this is done by using a statement that's going to look for that variable. And the next is to import the XML. And we're going to do that using a get content commandlet. And we're going to be naming a variable XML Data. So you've been warned. And from there, we're going to be making more variables and if statements, and we're going to need to determine root elements. We need to check if the root element exists and if it has children, all those dependencies. And then we have to create an array in order to hold these objects. Now, these objects, well, you'll see it. It's not going to take too long. And of course, this is a PowerShell lab, so sorry if I didn't actually bring that up first. But once I actually started experimenting with this, moved on. I'm going to ask you to forgive me, but I think the cold medicine is starting to kick in. But I did a few changes here. As I mentioned before, we needed to create an array to hold objects, like as mentioned in part 4. And let's see, we should be creating a variable, and this should be creating our array, or at least the bare bones of it. You gotta understand, from that, we gotta create a custom object, and well, we're gonna start with a for each statement, and it looks something like this, where you have your item, your root element, and your child nodes. There's a lot more. There's there's a couple if statements in there, and I really am a slow typist, and I don't want to have to actually put that there because I'm gonna have to do this later on in PowerShell and test this out. But we'll move on from there. We do need to do a few more things, but this is the gist of it. After that, we have to concern ourselves with one very important feature. We need to be able to export. My initial export attempts were to try just making a text file, but we're going to go with the CSV format. So it should look something like this. Objects from our array, we're going to export CSV, and in the file path, here's the variable to that path. Not putting any type of information, that's the encoding. That should work. Now from here, if I show you the test config, it's got a bunch of stuff in there. You don't really need to see everything. It's not really that important. But it's gonna look like this. You got a bunch of tags, a lot of information here. I don't need everything there. Like I said, this is just, think of it like if you were in med school. This is the cadaver. You're looking for specific parts, specific organs. In this case, the tags, the data that we want. I have messing with my metaphors, and I think my cold medicine is really kicking in. So let's try to end this really quick. So we're going to open up PowerShell and understand all this coding is a little rough, and I got no guarantees that it's going to work right off the bat. So now that I have this here, we are going to copy and paste because I have been doing this on the fly. Let's see, where are you? Let's see, and I'll just copy and paste it here. One moment. Okay, this is gonna go pretty fast. I'm not gonna backtrack, so here we go, and hit enter. Data exported to CSV, and that's the name of the file is ID and settings.csv. So if we go over to our test directory 2, and there it is. Now, if I open that, I'm gonna get this, and it gives me a little image of what it is. I'll say OK, and I'll bring in the spreadsheet. These are our tags, as were mentioned before. Got the store code. I have the information I wanted, and it's been saved. And I can do this for as many files as I want, and it should populate. Or it'll overwrite. I'm not quite sure yet. Like I said, this is rough. I'll do some fine tuning on my project, but this is the gist of it. I just wanted to share that with you guys. And with that, I hope you extracted whatever is useful out of this for your own projects, and have a great night. Take care, all.